Listen, this is really important right now. Your company, your organizations, your teams, they need you more than they ever have. It's no secret. There's this crazy shakeup going on in every single industry as our customers and our competitors, as they embrace software, as they embrace applications. We're living in this time of more technology disruption than ever in the history of man. And what you and your teams, how they respond to it, you're at the very epicenter of this disruption. And your actions will determine the future outcome of your organizations. And if we're going to collectively help as IT professionals, we got to really soak in this fact that our businesses, they don't really care about much of what we spend our everyday doing. They don't care about our infrastructure choices. They don't care about what kind of servers we use or container formats. There's just this single thing that the business really cares about. They want us to ship their business ideas, and they want us to ship those ideas as software. They want us to ship ideas to get new customers, ideas to make their employees happier and more productive, ideas to broaden our market reach, ideas to power partnerships, drive revenue, ideas to bring delight to our customers. They want us to ship their business ideas. That's what the IT game is about now. And they want us to do this quickly, because it turns out there's this direct link between software velocity, innovation, and competitiveness. High-velocity companies, they're more competitive. Another way of thinking about it is slowness kills innovation. And it's kind of obvious. We've all seen this. If you're at a place that takes 2 years to ship a good idea, and then 2 years to ship another idea, well, the organization just sort of gives up on us. Innovation dies. And in these disruptive times, if you can't drive innovation, well, it's going to be tough. And when we collectively do our best work, we ship ideas, we increase our organizational velocity, we free innovation, and we're driving great business outcomes. That's what I want Chef to be about. That's what this community is about. And I'd like to suggest that's what this conference is about, and that's what we should talk about over the next couple days. This idea and all the pieces that underlie it. So with that, I want to welcome you all to ChefConf 2016. And I want to give thank you. And I especially want to thank this group, our community. You've provided not only leadership to your organizations, the support you've given each other and given us is amazing. You're actually changing entire industries. So let's get back to this notion of shipping ideas. So I've both worked in Silicon Valley and spent a fair amount of time down there. And there's this truism down in the valley, and it's this: the ideas are the easy part. And I suspect for any one of our businesses, we could bring together a group of maybe 6 or 10 people, pull some customers in, and have one of these 2-hour brainstorming sessions that many of us have been a part of. And at the end of that, on the whiteboard, we'd probably have, I don't know, maybe a dozen good ideas to tackle any business challenge. But that's the easy part. The hard part is shipping those ideas and shipping them quickly. And I want to share kind of a personal little experience I went through recently that kind of highlighted for me how shipping those ideas is disrupting entire industries. So I'm not a huge TV watcher, but the Crist family we're prone to a good digital binge, as I suspect some of us are from time to time. And we had this sadness sort of grow over us because, well, we'd gotten to the end of Game of Thrones. Jon Snow, man, Jon Snow. And on our list, we thought, well, what else, should we watch? What other shows? And two suggestions have been made to us. One was Man in the High Castle, and the other is a show called Transparent. And these turn out both to be Amazon content. And you got two ways to watch it. You can either crack your laptop and watch it, or if you want to see it on your TV, you got to break down and buy this thing called a Fire TV. And so, sort of reluctantly, we bought it. And I spent a fair amount of time in this industry, and I'm pretty both curious and opinionated about new product experiences, as people on our team will tell you. And I was kind of blown away by it in a positive way. And what impressed me is you could see these ideas shipping as software. And let me just run through three of those. So the first is instant gratification. Don't delay if you want to delight. So this whole drama went down a couple Fridays ago, 8 p.m. And when I clicked that order button, the thing showed up with no shipping the next morning, or sometime the next day, Saturday, which is an amazing logistical feat. But the idea in there was it was pre-configured with my account information. It knew who I was, and I didn't have to enter my password. And if you've ever entered your password on one of these little TV remotes that seems to ask me every single time to enter it again, it drives you crazy. The second one that I hate in my cable box is if I'm doing on-demand shows, I'm just digging through menu after menu after menu to find which season and which episode. And this thing has something I didn't even know about. It had a little button on the remote that does voice. And I say, Man in the High Castle, and boom, pops up. And like a second later, I'm watching it. It works flawlessly. I'm a skeptic of voice. A lot of voice doesn't work very well. And then the third feature, I didn't even know about. When I hit pause for the first time, I was surprised. These windows popped up. And whoever's in on the scene, a little window comes up and it tells me that actor's name as well as the character's name. And if you're watching one of these complex, intricate shows, it's cool. Helps you keep track of who's who. I sort of want that in the professional world, by the way. And it's none of those ideas in and of themselves are extraordinary. We could have, any one of us, sat together and kicked it around and come up with those. What's hard is getting your organization to actually ship them. And I don't know who ends up winning the content delivery wars, but I can tell you, I feel for the incumbents. They got their hands full. They got Amazon and Google and Apple all bearing down on them. And advantages of the past, they don't matter today. Who owns the wire? It's not going to matter. It's all about software. And when we sit together in a couple ChefConfs, my money on who wins that war is who gets really good at shipping business ideas over and over again, quickly, at speed. And by the way, let's go back a couple ChefConfs ago. I talked about our family Volvo, which if I wanted to upgrade the nav and the software, I had to sit for 8 hours loading DVDs in the car while the car's running. And I live in the city, and it's kind of inconvenient to leave your car on the street running. And I made this comment that Volvo is a software company. They just didn't know it yet. Well, Volvo's figured it out. They know they're a tech company, and they know they're a software company. And actually, I know because I've talked to others of you that are here from the auto industry, and you also know that you're a software company, that you're a tech company. And our job is to help each one of our organizations unlock that innovation muscle. They all have it. It's just waiting to be developed. And that's our challenge, to help organizations to build that muscle. So let's talk about what's getting in our way. There's a couple of big blockers. And the first, and if you're in a big enterprise, I think this is tough. This is the big one. And it's silos. And silos, they kill velocity. It's a very difficult one to break. And by the way, this runs much deeper than just the org chart. It's a deep cultural issue. And when our services teams, when we go work with big customers, it's almost always one of the first places that we dig in. And we kind of pull from the best of Agile and Lean and DevOps. And whether you work with us or you work with someone else, what you got to do is the same. You got to pull together these high-functioning, cross-organizational teams, focus on business outcomes, focus on shipping those business ideas. And you need those teams to be made up of no more, no less than whoever can pull together and ship that idea. It's usually someone from the business and someone from the app team and infrastructure, a security team, maybe a network team. You guys know, who you need to pull that together. And the thing is, those teams, they're usually pretty far apart. They don't often work that closely together. And making this happen, that's the crux. And by the way, that video we opened with, Hug Ops, I mean, first of all, thank you, we had some fun doing it. But there's real business intent under that. And what Hug Ops is about to me is, do you have a business intimate enough relationship with your counterparts at your company that you can hug it in with them or high five or fist bump or whatever you do? Do you know them by name? Have you sat shoulder to shoulder with those people? And have you worked on those business problems? And if the answer is no to that, it's kind of a signal that there's probably some work to be done to foster that. And if the answer is yes, hey, keep doing that. And by the way, to break that silo problem, it's not just a cultural issue, it's also a technology issue. You have to have platforms that support collaboration. And we're all hearing this word collaboration a lot right now. We're saying it a lot. And collaboration is just a fancy word for working together. And if you don't have platforms to support working together, well, it's going to be hard to work together then. So it's both a state of mind and it's a technology problem. The second blocker is we don't actually, in most organizations, have a consistent way to build and ship software. There's no single modern software factory, if you will. In fact, for a lot of big organizations, they don't just have one. They might have hundreds or even 1,000. They have as many as they do applications. And sometimes each team is sort of handcrafting this bespoke, mysterious process of how we ship software. And not only is that wildly inefficient, it creates problems with people too, right? I had a customer tell me this at one of the briefings where they came to Chef. And they were just saying if someone moved from one team to another team, it was like going to another company. And what we're seeing in high-velocity organizations is there's this convergence going on of how you ship software. And it becomes the same whether it's an application or it's your infrastructure or even compliance. As everything becomes software-defined, you can actually ship it the same way. And again, let me underscore the collaboration message, the working together message. If you want to ship across those organizational boundaries that have been constructed, you've got to have technology that supports that. And the third blocker, well, I think the third one's compliance. And a lot of times when I talk with developers, I get sort of a groan, a big ugh comes out when we talk about compliance. And there's been this big rift between the security teams and the developers in many organizations. And the first thing I want to suggest is I think we got to all hug it in with the compliance teams, with those security teams. And we got to get really comfortable with compliance. And as everything becomes software defined, as our lives depend on software, we're also vulnerable to software attack in all parts of our lives. So this issue is going to get worse. It's not going to be lessened. And what I think makes this easy is if we can define compliance. Think of what we've done with infrastructure. If you can make infrastructure as code, you can make compliance as code. And once it's code, then you can actually define compliance, not as something in a written manual or Word document. You can actually define it as a software test. And the great news is, developers, we know what to do with software tests. And then compliance, instead of being an afterthought, we can actually move it all the way over left into build. We can make compliance happen at the very earliest part of our release cycle. We know how to do test-driven infrastructure and test-driven development. And then this cool thing, and we see this starting to happen with some customers, there's a reinforcing loop between velocity and compliance. Because if every time you release, you're testing your compliance against your full infrastructure and application stack, the more often you ship, the lower that drift, the thinner that gets. If you ship once a year, you could be a year out of drift with compliance. But if you're shipping every 20 minutes, at worst, you're 20 minutes out of compliance. So I think we're going to see a big change over the next couple of years around this topic. All right, let me shift gears. Let me talk about Chef. And I think no conversation about Chef should start anywhere other than open source. Thank you, thank you. Is that Franklin? Yeah. Listen, open source is the foundation of who we are. And not only of who we are, it turns out it's this really fundamental ingredient behind an enormous amount of innovation. That TV example I gave, that's built on Android OS, open source. It's built on which is built on the Linux kernel, which is open source. And I think there's a lot of reasons why open source has become so prevalent in the enterprise. But perhaps most simply, it's easy to get, and then if you're a developer, you can make it your own. So open source software, it's become part of the modern software factory. Every single high-velocity organization is using lots of open source. And I can't say this strongly enough. Chef is deeply, deeply dedicated to an open source business model and our open source projects. Thank you. We also want to continue to be, both as a company and as a community, a model of inclusion. I also view it's my responsibility to drive a strong and successful business model around open source. I believe in a world where a successful business model and investments to open source, those things reinforce each other. In fact, Habitat represents just that. As we've had success, we're able to invest in new areas and do new things. And I want us to be the best example in the industry of that. And the good news for Chef, and thanks to you all, it is working. The past year is the best ever in our history. We grew something over 90% year-over-year revenue growth. So thank you all for that. And as far as I can see, I expect that growth to continue unabated. We now count as our customers and partners among the most significant organizations in the world. Google, Facebook, Amazon, HP, IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, GE. In fact, 70% of the Fortune 500 technology list, they're using Chef in a meaningful way to power their modern software factories. And I want to talk about Chef, the platform, for a second. At its foundation, 3 open source projects. Chef, which you know, that's infrastructure automation, and we will continue to invest very heavily in Chef. The second one is a new one for us, Habitat. Think of this as application automation. And by the way, if I have one ask for you, I would love for all of you to check out Habitat while you're here. Bring it into your labs when you go home. Kick it around, let us know what you think. We've taken a very different tack than most of the industry. And we're really, really hungry to hear your feedback. And it's amazing that some of you have already started to bring this in and use it. And the third is Inspect. And Inspect is the foundation of our compliance work. And we've been a little quiet about Inspect. But a bunch of you actually pulled it in, are doing some pretty amazing things with it around compliance at scale. And we're going to make some pretty strong investments in Inspect over the next year. And you're going to see some announcements, not just from Chef, but from some very big partners that are getting fully behind Inspect. And then, as Nathan alluded to, we're announcing today for the very first time Chef Automate. And Chef Automate pulls together, unifies, and integrates both our open source and our commercial elements in a way that's never happened before. So it works not only with Chef, it'll work with Habitat, it'll work with Inspect. It includes both things that we've already had in the kit, for example, workflow, which used to be called delivery. And then we'll show today something new, visibility. And visibility is the next generation of Chef analytics. And then lastly, but not least, is Chef certification. I've heard from so many of you that you're struggling to find people with chef skills in the market. And we want to help our community, we want to help that marketplace, we want to help people build chef skills. And we've done some really neat and clever and innovative things around our certification program. Yeah. All right, so with that, Nathan, can I ask you to come back out?
All right, Barry.
All right, so first of all, we're so lucky with Nathan. Not only do we have the best community leader, and not only building our own community, if you're trying to build communities in your organizations, use Nathan, bring him in, bring his team in, they can help with that. So, look, we want to leave you with just this single piece of advice, this one thing that we can do to help you in your career. And if you want to strengthen your relationship with any counterpart in your organization, this can be a peer, this could be your boss, even CFOs and CEOs like this. Just put on this t-shirt that Nathan has, or get a sticker, put it on the back of your laptop, or write it down on a napkin at the coffee joint you're at, and just say it again and again and again. I want to ship your idea. I want to ship your idea. That's our job. That's what IT is about. That's what this game's going to be about. Have a great time in Austin. Before I leave, I want to invite two people up to actually show you some of these things. Seth Falcon, who's our VP of Engineering, Oliver Farini, who's one of our development managers. Thank you so much. Have a great time in Austin.